I never wanted to go on that cruise. It sounded too grand, too expensive, too unnecessary. Cruises were for newlyweds and millionaires, not for widows with thinning hair and joints that ached every time it rained. But then the phone rang one evening, and my son's voice spilled through the line. Daniel's tone carried something strange, forced excitement, like he was reading from a script. "Mom," he said, "we have booked something special. A family cruise. You are coming with us. No arguments." For a moment, I sat frozen, clutching the receiver. They had not invited me to much lately. Holidays were awkward, birthdays shortened to quick dinners, and every visit ended with me feeling like I was intruding in my own son's life. Yet here he was, insisting I join them on an all-expenses-paid trip across the sea. At first, I thought it was kindness. Maybe guilt. Maybe, finally, recognition that I was still part of the family. "Are you sure?" I asked carefully. "These things cost a fortune." He laughed, but it was hollow, like a sound borrowed from someone else. "Don't worry about money, Mom. We have got it covered. We want you there. Everyone does." That one word, everyone, clung to me like a burr. The day of departure dawned cloudless and cruelly bright. I wheeled my modest suitcase down the gangway, my heart pounding as the massive ship loomed above me. It was less a boat and more a floating city, gleaming white steel and endless glass windows catching the sunlight. Music spilled from hidden speakers, and children squealed with joy. Everyone around me buzzed with excitement. Everyone but me. Maybe it was the way Melissa, my daughter-in-law, barely looked at me as she handed her designer luggage to a porter. Or maybe it was Chloe, my granddaughter, who hugged me quickly but pulled away as if someone had told her not to linger. Something was wrong. I told myself I was imagining it. That was nerves. That I should be grateful. But as we boarded, I noticed Daniel walking several steps ahead, never once turning back to see if I was keeping up. He had always been protective as a boy. But now, he moved as if I were cargo, something he had agreed to bring along, not someone he wanted beside him. My cabin was far nicer than I expected. A wide bed dressed in crisp white linens, a private balcony overlooking endless blue waves, and even a bowl of polished fruit on the desk. But when I slid open the wardrobe door, I froze. The hangers rattled slightly, as though disturbed just moments ago. And there was a faint scent clinging to the wood, cologne. Expensive. Musky. Masculine. Not mine. I listened, holding my breath. Nothing but the steady hum of the ship's engines. Still, the sensation of being watched pressed against my spine. Shaking it off, I unpacked carefully. I draped my old shawl over the back of the chair, its faded threads a small piece of home in a place that already felt too polished, too staged, too foreign. That evening, the dining hall glittered like a ballroom. Chandeliers glowed, violins played softly, and waiters glided between tables balancing silver trays. Melissa sparkled in a dress that must have cost more than my yearly pension. Chloe laughed freely, her bracelets jingling as she twirled her fork. And Daniel, my Daniel, raised his glass with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "To family," he said, "and to making memories." They clinked glasses. I lifted mine too, though my hand trembled when I caught Melissa's gaze flicking toward me, sharp and assessing. Through dinner, they spoke in fragments, coded phrases I was not meant to decode. Daniel mentioned documents being finalized. Melissa joked about securing what's ours. Chloe smirked like she held a secret too delicious to keep. I forced myself to chew, smile, and nod. But then, just as the laughter swelled, I heard it. Melissa leaned toward Daniel and whispered, not nearly low enough, "But what about her?" Her eyes slid to me, cold and calculating. Daniel hushed her quickly. "Not now." I smiled. Faintly, pretending I had not heard. But inside, my chest tightened. What about me? Later that night, the hallway to my cabin was eerily silent, the kind of silence that amplifies the sound of your own breathing. I slid my keycard, pushed the door open, and stopped dead. Something was different. The fruit bowl, earlier, the apple had been on top. Now, the banana was small, insignificant, unless you are the one who left it. My shawl had shifted on the chair. The wardrobe door hung slightly ajar. And there, on the bed, lay an envelope. Blank. No name. My heart pounded as I picked it up. The paper was thin, cheap, almost trembling in my hands. I tore it open. Inside was a single slip of paper, scrawled and hurried, uneven black ink. Don't trust them. I sat on the edge of the bed, the note clutched in my shaking fingers until the letters blurred. Who left it? A crew member? A passenger? Someone trying to scare me? Or worse, someone trying to save me? I replayed the day in my mind, Melissa's sharp glance, Daniel's distracted smile, Chloe's smirk, the whispered words at dinner. And now this. Don't trust them. Not him. Not her. Not any of them. I wanted to dismiss it as a prank. But deep down, I already knew better. That night, I barely slept. The ship creaked and groaned against the waves, each sound becoming a threat. Shadows slid across the ceiling, and every whisper of movement in the hallway made me sit upright. I thought of my late husband, of how he would have studied me, how he would have known what to do. Alone, I clutched the note like it was a lifeline. By morning, I plastered on a smile and joined them for breakfast. Melissa greeted me with sugary warmth. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, her eyes too sharp, her voice too sweet. "Fine," I lied. Daniel barely ate, glancing at his watch over and over. Chloe scrolled her phone, giggling under her breath. I studied them all carefully, searching for cracks in their performance. Were they pretending everything was normal? Because they did not know about the note? Or because they did, and were watching me for a reaction? The waiter poured my coffee, and as I reached for the cup, I caught Chloe leaning toward Melissa, whispering. Melissa smirked, then mouthed a word. I could have sworn it was tonight. The day unfolded like a glossy advertisement, lounging by the pool, shuffleboard on deck, endless buffets. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Every time they thought I was not looking, I caught them, Daniel's jaw tightening, Melissa's calculating glance, Chloe's sly smirk. I longed to confront them, but what would I say? I found a note under my pillow, and now I think you were plotting something against me. So instead, I stayed silent. I stored each detail away like puzzle pieces waiting to be assembled. That afternoon, I wandered alone, the salt air stinging my lungs. And that's when I saw it. Daniel, standing by the railing with a man I did not recognize. Their heads bent close, their voices low. When the man handed Daniel a folder, Daniel tucked it quickly under his jacket. I ducked behind a lifeboat, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might give me away. A folder. A secret meeting. My son hiding something from me. This was not a family vacation. This was something else. Something darker. That night, back in my cabin, I locked the door. Twice. I spread the mysterious note on the desk and stared at it until my eyes burned. Don't trust them. The handwriting was rushed, uneven, almost frantic. Someone wanted me to believe. Someone wanted me to wake up. But was it a warning or a trap? I folded the note, tucked it into my pocket, and whispered aloud, if they think I am blind, they are wrong. If they think I am weak, they are wrong. Just as I reached to switch off the lamp, I froze. Rustling. At the door. A shadow shifted against the narrow strip of light under the frame. Someone was out there. Waiting. Listening. And I realized with bone-deep certainty, this cruise was not about family. It was about me. And I was in danger. The ocean has a way of hiding its secrets. It was calm when we boarded, calm as the captain welcomed us on deck, calm as families rushed to the buffet and children squealed at the sight of the endless pool. But sometimes, calmness is a disguise. and I should have known better than to trust it. Because that night, long before the real storm broke, the first cracks in our family's cruise began to show. It started small. I had just left the dining hall, where my son had been unusually quiet, barely touching his food, staring out at the endless water as though he expected it to reveal something. His wife kept leaning toward him, whispering things too soft for me to hear, her manicured fingers tightening around the stem of her glass every time his gaze drifted toward me. When dinner ended, I took the long way back, walking through one of the ship's endless corridors. Families bustled past, voices echoing against steel walls polished so clean they reflected distorted versions of ourselves. I was halfway down when I noticed her. A woman. She stood near the emergency exit, half hidden by shadows, wearing the standard housekeeping uniform. But her posture was not like the others I had seen, no polite smile, no efficient stride. She was not working. She was watching. Watching me. Before I could ask if she needed something, she stepped forward and pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm. No words. No explanation. Just a sharp look, and then she slipped through the stairwell door, vanishing as though she had never been there. I stopped cold, staring at the paper. My heart rattled like loose change in a tin box. Slowly, I unfolded it. Inside, in rushed handwriting, were 6 words: "Do not trust what you were told." And then, beneath it, the truth is buried below deck. Midnight. Come alone. I felt the ship sway under my feet, or maybe it was just me, unsteady from the weight of that warning. Back in my cabin, I could not shake the message. The note burned in my hand long after I had tucked it into my pocket. What truth? And why below deck? I glanced at the clock. Nearly midnight. Every instinct told me to ignore it, to lock my door and pretend nothing had happened. But then I remembered my son at dinner, his face pale, his eyes distracted, as though he carried a burden he could not share. And his wife's sharp whispers, her hand clamping on his wrist as if warning him not to speak. By 11:45, curiosity and fear won. I slipped on a coat, careful not to make noise. The corridor outside was empty, humming only with the mechanical heartbeats of the ship. Every creak made me pause. Every shadow made me doubt. What if this was a trap? What if someone lured me down there to rob me, or worse? Still, I descended the stairwell, down to the bottom deck where the smell hit first: oil, salt, and something metallic that made the air heavy. Rows of storage rooms stretched ahead, their doors shut tight. The ship groaned, and water slapped against the hull. Then I heard it. A voice. Low. Male. She cannot find out. If she does, everything falls apart. I froze, breath caught in my throat. Creeping closer, I pressed against the cold steel wall and peered through the crack of a half-open door. Inside were 2 figures. One I did not recognize, broad shoulders, a crew jacket. But the other, my son. I told you already, Daniel hissed, his tone sharp, his face harder than I had ever seen it. She suspects nothing. But if anyone talks, if she learns the truth, we are finished. She is not stupid, the crewman muttered. That old woman notices more than you think. Old woman. My chest is burned by the words. They were talking about me. Daniel's voice rose again. Then we will handle it. Do you want the whole plan to fall apart now, when we are this close? Plan. The word rang in my ears like a death knell. What plan? What secret? And why did it require making sure I never learned it? Before I could gather my thoughts, a loud slam echoed down the corridor. Somewhere, another door had shut. Both men stiffened. Footsteps. Coming closer. Panic seized me. I ducked into the nearest storage room, my back pressing against cold metal as I crouched behind a stack of folded deck chairs. My pulse thundered so loud I feared it would give me away. Their footsteps stopped. Right outside my door. She is here, the unknown voice muttered. No. No, they could not know. Then my son's reply cut sharper than any blade. Let her look. The more she knows, the easier it will be to make her disappear. I bit down hard on my fist to smother the gas that rose. Disappear? The footsteps lingered, then moved on, fading into the corridor's shadows. I didn't move. Could not. Not until the silence pressed heavy enough to make me believe they were gone. When I finally stumbled back to my cabin, the note still in my pocket felt heavier than stone. By morning, the weather had changed. The horizon wore a crown of dark clouds, the sea restless and foaming. The captain's voice crackled over the loudspeakers, announcing rough waters ahead, excursions cancelled, passengers advised to stay indoors. But while others panicked about seasickness and safety drills, I was not afraid of the storm outside. I was afraid of the one brewing in my family. At breakfast, I studied Daniel. His smile was too even, too rehearsed. Melissa's gaze brushed over me, sharp, appraising. Chloe whispered something into her mother's ear, and they both laughed a little too quickly. Did they know what I had overheard? I forced myself to sip coffee, pretending to be oblivious. But every nerve screamed that I was sitting across from conspirators who shared my blood. Later, I searched for the woman who had given me the note. Deck after deck, corridor after corridor, until finally, I spotted her again. Carrying towels, blending into the housekeeping staff. I hurried over. It's me. You gave me the note. What did you mean? Her eyes flipped nervously around. Not here. She whispered. Same place. Tonight. Bring no one. I grabbed her arm. Please, just tell me, why my family? What's happening? But before she could answer, a supervisor appeared. The woman snapped upright, plastering on a smile. Fresh towels, ma'am. She chirped, slipping away as though our exchange had never happened. I stood frozen, more unsettled than before. That evening, as the storm rattled the ship and rain pounded against the windows, I sat in my cabin staring at my reflection. Was I overreacting? Misinterpreting everything? But then I remembered Daniel's words. If she learns the truth, we are finished. Finished how? Financially? Socially? Or something darker? And if the woman was risking her job to warn me, then whatever lay beneath this cruise was not just family drama, it was dangerous. Near midnight, the storm still held outside. I pulled on a sweater, heart hammering, and slipped into the dim corridors below deck. The wall shook with every violent wave, lights flickering. Shadows stretched long and restless. She was there, the woman, clutching something in her hands, waiting near the storage rooms. Relief surged through me. But before I could reach her, two figures stepped from the darkness. My son, and the crewman from before. Mom? Daniel said, his smile thin, sharp as a blade. Out for a midnight stroll? The woman's face strained of color. She shook her head, a silent warning. My pulse thundered in my ears. I had only seconds to choose, pretend I knew nothing, or admit I had uncovered too much. And in that storm-shaken corridor, with secrets pressing in from every side, I realized something chilling. No matter what I said next, nothing would ever be the same again. The storm outside was fierce, but the storm in my chest was worse. Lightning split the horizon, thunder rolled across the waves, and the whole ship groaned as though it wanted to turn back. But I could not turn back. Not now. Because my son's smirk lingered in the air like a knife pressed against my throat. He stood just a few feet away, eyes slicing into me. Beside him loomed the broad-shouldered crewman I had overheard before. And between them, trapped, trembling, the woman who had slipped me the warning note. She clutched something tightly against her chest. Her fingers curled so hard around it her knuckles glowed white. What was she holding? Why was she so afraid? And most importantly, why was my son here, at midnight, on the bottom deck of a ship no passenger had any reason to enter? My throat felt dry, but I forced a laugh. I could not sleep, I said quickly. The storm's too loud. I thought walking might calm me. My son's smile did not waver, but his eyes narrowed, dissecting me like a puzzle. Walking down here? He gestured at the dark corridor. Below decks? That's strange, don't you think? The crewman let out a low chuckle, the kind that wasn't meant to be funny. I shrugged, feigning innocence. I must have gotten lost. The hallways all looked the same. The woman's gaze flicked up, meeting mine for just a second. Her eyes pleaded, "Don't say anything. Don't expose me." Daniel tilted his head, his smirk stretching thinner. "Careful not to wander again, Mom. Would not want you to slip and fall in this storm." The way he said fall made my stomach lurch. A warning or a promise? I hurried back to my cabin, my hand shaking so badly I fumbled with the keycard twice before I got the door open. Inside, I collapsed onto the bed, trying to quiet my breath. My husband stirred in his sleep but did not wake. The rocking of the ship had pulled him into uneasy dreams. That's when I felt it. Something crinkled inside my coat pocket. Frowning, I reached in and pulled out a small envelope. My pulse spiked. The woman. She must have slipped it into my pocket while my son was watching me. I tore it open. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Daniel, not on the ship, but in what looked like a dimly lit office. He was shaking hands with the crewman. Between them sat papers stamped with the name of a company I did not recognize. And in the corner of one sheet, scrawled in red ink, was a figure, $5 billion. My breath caught. $5 billion. I pressed a hand to my mouth. What could possibly be worth that much? And why was my son involved? At the bottom of the photo, written in the same rushed handwriting as the first note, were more words: "If he succeeds, you lose everything." Morning came, but the storm had not passed. Rain lashed the windows. The ship groaned with every swell. The hallway smelled faintly of damp carpet and fear. At breakfast, Daniel greeted me as if nothing had happened. Melissa, his wife, smiled too sweetly while buttering her toast, her eyes flicking to me when she thought I was not looking. I forced myself to sip my coffee, though my hands trembled. The photo in my nightstand haunted me. How long had my son been planning this? What was his endgame? And was I just collateral damage in something far bigger than our family? The number, $5 billion, burned in my brain. It was surreal, incomprehensible. Yet the photograph was real. I had to know more. That night, once my husband drifted off, I slipped back down the stairwell. The woman was waiting, her eyes darting nervously down the corridor. "You saw the photo," she whispered. "Yes," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "What does it mean? What is my son doing?" She glanced over her shoulder, then pressed closer. "Your son, he is not who you think he is. None of them are." That handshake. It was not business, it was a pact. The papers were part of a transfer. Land deeds. Property. Offshore accounts. He is tied into something global. Global? I shook my head. He is my son. He is not, she cut me off, her voice tight. He is deeper in than you realize. And you are the only one who could expose him. That's why you are in danger. Her words froze my blood. Expose him how? I whispered. Instead of answering, she opened her palm. Resting there was a tiny cassette tape. "This," she said. "Proof. Conversations recorded. Enough to destroy the entire scheme. Enough to ruin him." I stared at it. Proof. But why me? Why trust me with this? Before I could ask, heavy footsteps echoed at the end of the hall. Her eyes widened. She shoved the tape into my hand. "Hide it. Don't let them know you have it. If they find you," she broke off. She didn't need to finish. The footsteps drew closer. I barely had time to tuck the cassette into my pocket before Daniel appeared, Melissa at his side. "Mom," he said smoothly, his voice calm, too calm. "You are wandering again." I forced a thin laugh. "I told you, the storm makes it impossible to sleep. Just needed a little walk." Melissa's eyes darted to the woman, then back to me. A silent warning seemed to pass between them. "Let's go," Daniel said, tugging Melissa's hand. "It's dangerous down here." He didn't acknowledge the woman. But before turning away, he looked at me with something that wasn't quite a smile. It was almost as if he knew. Almost as if he was daring me to play along. Back in my cabin, I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the cassette tape so tightly my fingers ached. Was it really proof? Would it expose everything? Or was it just another layer of lies meant to trap me? And worse, if Daniel realized I had it, what would he do? The storm outside rattled the walls, but the storm inside me was louder. Every creak in the hallway made me flinch. Every slam of the waves against the hull sounded like a countdown. By dawn, I knew one thing: I had to know what was on that tape. Finding a cassette player on a cruise ship wasn't easy. But I remembered the entertainment lounge had old karaoke equipment, machines dusty from disuse. That afternoon, while most passengers were confined to their cabins from seasickness, I slipped into the lounge. The machine groaned as I pushed the tape inside. Static crackled. And then, voices. Clear. Distinct. Terrifying. If the accounts aren't transferred by the end of the trip, we'll lose the leverage. She is the... he. Without her signature, the inheritance is frozen. My chest is seized. My son's voice. My signature. My inheritance. The tape hissed. Then another voice growled, "Then we remove her. Accidents happen at sea. A storm, a slip, a fall." I yanked the tape out before the words could go further. My hand shook so violently the machine rattled. They weren't just planning something shady. They were planning to erase me. I stumbled back to my cabin, my mind unraveling. Without her signature, the inheritance is frozen. That's what this was about. The empire my late husband and I had built. The fortune had left in trust. And my son wanted it all, badly enough to plan my accident. But there was something else too. That figure on the papers, $5 billion. This wasn't just my inheritance. It was bigger. Global. And somehow, my name was the key. How had I been so blind? That night, the storm finally began to calm. The sea was quieter, but my nerves were not. I locked the tape inside my suitcase and sat awake in the dark. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. A click. My cabin door easing open. My blood ran cold. A shadow moved across the room, slow, deliberate. Someone was inside. I lay frozen, barely breathing, as the figure approached my suitcase. The suitcase that held the tape. Fingers curled around the zipper. Slowly, carefully, the shadow began to open it. And in that instant, I knew, if they found the tape, I would not live to see the next sunrise. The zipper sound tore through the silence like a blade. I lay frozen, every muscle locked, as the shadow bent over my suitcase. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't let them know you're awake. The figure's hand slipped inside, rustling through folded clothes. I strained to see through the faint moonlight spilling through the porthole. The outline was lean, deliberate, familiar. And then, as the figure straightened, I caught a glimpse of the face. It wasn't my son. It was my daughter-in-law. She moved with eerie calm, as if this wasn't her first time. Stealing in the dark. Her hand closed around the cassette tape, pulling it free. For one horrifying second, the plastic caught the moonlight, and I thought she might hear the hammering of my heartbeat echoing through the cabin. But she didn't notice me. She tucked the tape into her robe pocket, zipped the suitcase neatly, and padded silently back to the door. I nearly gasped with relief when she slipped out. Relief, but also dread. Because now, the proof was in her hands. At breakfast the next morning, she sat across from me, buttering a croissant with a smile that looked too polished, too deliberate. My son leaned back in his chair, relaxed, as if he had slept soundly while I had lain awake all night shaking. Had she told him? Did they both know? I studied her face, searching for cracks, but she was unreadable. Finally, I tested her. Strange night, wasn't it? The storm kept me tossing and turning. She didn't flinch. Oh, I slept like a baby. Her smile widened as she raised her coffee cup. You really should learn to rest, Mother. Stress is terrible for the heart, especially at your age. The words dripped with meaning. A warning. A veiled threat. And I realized something chilling. She wasn't just a bystander in this plan. She was an architect. That afternoon, I escaped to the upper deck, desperate for air to clear my spinning mind. The storm had broken, leaving the ocean eerily calm, its surface too still, as though holding secrets of its own. The woman who had first given me the tape appeared beside me, her eyes frantic. You still have it, she whispered. I hesitated. Could I trust her? Could I tell her the truth? No, I decided. Not yet. Yes, I lied. I still have it. Her shoulders sagged with relief. Good. Don't let them take it. It's the only thing keeping you alive. Alive. The word stuck in my chest like a thorn. Before I could reply, footsteps echoed. My son. He strolled toward us, hands in pockets, eyes flicking between me and a woman. Out for some air? He asked lightly, though his tone was heavy with suspicion. Yes, I said quickly, forcing a smile. Just enjoying the calm. His gaze lingered on the woman for a beat too long. Then he smiled faintly at me. Be careful, Mum. People slip easily on wet decks. Another warning, coded in politeness. Another reminder of how fragile my safety was. That night, I could not hold back. I confronted her. I know, I said, stepping into their cabin without knocking. She looked up from her book, one brow arched. Know what? Don't play games. The tape. You came into my cabin. You took it. Her smile never faltered. And if I did, then give it back. She laughed softly, the sound sharp as broken glass. Oh, Mother. You're in way over your head. That little cassette. Dangerous for you to even know it exists. Best to forget about it entirely. Her tone was casual, but her eyes gleamed with victory. I clenched my fists. What do you want from me? She leaned forward, her voice a whisper of ice. Your silence. Your obedience. And eventually, your signature. I recoiled. So it's true. The inheritance. The billions. You're planning to steal it. Her expression hardened. Planning? No, dear. It's already in motion. I stumbled back to my cabin, my mind spiraling. How had my life unraveled so quickly? A cruise meant to heal our fractured family had turned into a prison, a trap. I thought of my husband, still weak, still sleeping through most of this nightmare, unaware of the knives pointed at our backs. And I thought of my son, the boy I had raised, the man I had loved, now twisted into something unrecognizable. Had greed poisoned him? Or had this side of him always been there, waiting for the right moment to surface? Questions clawed at me, but answers stayed just out of reach. The next day, the woman found me again, in the library this time. Her voice was urgent, sharp with fear. They know, she hissed. They know you have the tape. My stomach dropped. I don't tell me you lost it, she snapped. I hesitated. Her wild eyes told me the truth would destroy her. I hid it, I lied. She nodded quickly. Good. Then listen carefully. Tonight, below decks again, there is more you need to see. More you need to hear. Before I could protest, she vanished between the shelves, leaving me trembling. That night, my nerves screamed as I descended the stairwell once more. The air was damp, metallic. Every creak of the ship sounded like approaching footsteps. She was waiting, clutching another envelope. "This," she whispered, pressing it into my hand. "This is the second tape. Hide it better this time. They can't know you have it." The second tape? How many more were there? Before I could ask, a shout rang down the corridor. My son's voice. "Mom?" The woman's eyes widened. She shoved me toward the shadows. "Go. Now." I stumbled into a side passage, clutching the envelope. Moments later, my son appeared, eyes scanning, voice smooth but dangerous. "Mom?" He called again. Calm. Too calm. Hunting calm. I held my breath until his footsteps faded. Only then did I open the envelope in the safety of my cabin. Inside was another cassette. This one labeled in thick black ink, "The Betrayal." The next morning, I played the tape in the lounge, every nerve strung tight. It began with my son's voice. "She trusts me completely. Always has. Shall sign when the time comes. And if not, well, we have ways of ensuring cooperation." My chest is tightened. Then my daughter-in-law's voice, sharp and cold. "Don't get sentimental, Daniel. She's an obstacle, nothing more. Once she is gone, we'll have it all." Silence. Then my son whispered, "And if she survives?" Her reply sliced through me like a blade. "Then shall wish she had not." I slammed the stop button, tears stinging my eyes. This wasn't just greed. It was malice. Intent. Betrayal by the two people I should have trusted most. And the tape was proof. Proof they could not allow me to keep. 2 tapes now. 2 damning pieces of evidence. But how long before they found them? How long before veiled threats turned to action? Every glance from my son felt like a blade. Every smile from his wife dripped with poison. And as the ship cut through the endless ocean, I understood the truth. I was trapped. No escape. No land. No allies. Just me and them. And the secret that could destroy us all. That night, as I tucked the second tape into a hiding spot only I knew, a knock echoed at my door. 3 sharp raps. I froze. Slowly, I opened it. And there she was, the woman who had given me the tapes. But this time, her eyes weren't frantic. They were calm. Cold. And in her hand, she held my daughter-in-law's robe. "I think it's time you knew the truth," she said softly. "I am not who you think I am." The ship's ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, their crystals scattering light like frozen stars across polished marble floors. Desks clinked champagne glasses, laughter floated with the violin quartet's melody, and the whole room shimmered with elegance. To an outsider, it was perfect. Beautiful. Untouchable. But to me, every laugh was sharp. Every clink of glass felt hollow. Every passing glance was heavy with suspicion. Because I knew something no one else did, or at least, I thought I did. There was a traitor among us. And tonight, I was going to find out who. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain boomed, raising his glass from the stage, "to another night of smooth sailing and even smoother company." The room erupted in cheers. Glasses lifted high. Smiles wide and effortless. But my own hand trembled as I raised mine. My gaze swept the table, my son, smirking as if holding a private joke, my daughter-in-law, her eyes darting toward the exit like a trapped bird, my sister, her lips pressed in silence, still cold from yesterday's argument. Who was it? Who had orchestrated this trip, wrapping it in luxury but weaving it with deception? I sipped, but the champagne was bitter. Not from the taste. From the company. As the music swelled, I slipped out, pretending to need air. The polished hallway swallowed the sound of my heels as I moved toward a shadowed corner of the deck. That's when I froze. Voices. Low. Urgent. Just beyond the glass doors of the lounge. She doesn't know yet. She will. And when she does, it'll be too late. My pulse spiked. She doesn't know. Too late for what? I pressed against the wall, heart racing. But before I could catch another word, the voices stopped. A door creaked. Footsteps scattered. By the time I dared peek inside, the lounge was empty. Or was it? A single napkin lay crumpled on the table, a scrawl of hurried ink across it, midnight. Storage deck. The letters blurred as my pulse hammered. Midnight. Tonight. At dinner, I forced conversation. Laughed where I needed to. Ate nothing. My mind spun circles around the napkin in my pocket. My son watched me carefully. Too carefully. You were awfully quiet tonight, Mom, he said, tone light, but eyes sharp. Something on your mind? I looked at him, really looked. This man across the table wasn't the boy who once clung to my hand in grocery stores. His face was older, harder. Was it experience? Or was it calculation? Just tired, I lied, stabbing my fork into food I could not taste. But inside, I was screaming. Was it you whispering in the lounge? The clock neared 12. I moved silently through the empty corridors, clutching a small flashlight. The hum of the engines echoed louder than my heartbeat. The storage deck was colder, heavier. The smell, oil, salt, metal. I crouched behind a stack of crates, waiting. Voices. Again. $620,000 wasn't enough. She is sitting on far more, and this trip is the key. She'll never see it coming. By the time she realizes, it'll already belong to us. The word sliced through me. Not rumors. Not suspicion. This was about me. My money. My life. I leaned forward, desperate to see the faces. And then recognition slammed into me. My sister. My breath caught. My sister. The same woman who shared my childhood secrets, who held my hand through heartbreaks, who once swore she would never betray me. Now here she was, plotting to take everything. But she wasn't alone. Another shadow stepped into the thin strip of light from a hatch window. My heart seized. It wasn't my son. It wasn't my daughter-in-law. It was the lawyer. The man who had insisted on arranging this cruise. The man who promised this trip will heal old wounds. Lies. All of it. It wasn't about family bonding. It was about control. Inheritance. Manipulation. My stomach turned as I realized how easily we had walked into his trap. But why my sister? Why her? My phone was in my hand before I knew it. One photo. Just one photo. I raised it, clicked, snap. The sound was tiny, but deadly. Two heads whipped around. Who was there? Panic erupted. I bolted. Flashlight beams slashed across walls as footsteps thundered after me. Get her. The words chased me as hard as their feet. I slammed into barrels, scrambled over them, breath tearing from my lungs. My shoes slipped on the slick floor. My heart screamed louder than my mind. A stairwell door. I yanked it open. My feet pounded upward, but the footsteps grew closer. They were faster. Stronger. I could not outrun them. I burst onto the balcony deck, the night air cold and wet, whipping my hair into my face. The ocean stretched endless and black before me. Behind me, the door banged open. There she is. Nowhere to run. Lifeboats. My only chance. I stumbled toward one, reached for the release lever, and a hand clamped around my wrist. Enough games, a voice growled. The lawyer. His eyes glinted in the darkness, full of victory. Why? I demanded, yanking against his grip. Why do this?" His smile was colder than the ocean. "Because, my dear, money makes monsters of us all." Before he could drag me away, another figure lunged from the shadows, slamming into him. The lawyer staggered, cursing. "Run!" a voice shouted. I froze. It was my son. The son I doubted. The son I feared. The son I thought had turned against me. But here he was, fighting for me. "Go, Mom. I have got him." The lawyer lunged again. My son caught him. Fists flew. Grunts echoed off steel walls. Fury lit my son's face, not greed. Fury. Protection. For the first time, I wondered, had I been wrong all along? I staggered backward, my phone still clutched in my hand. On the screen, the faint glow of the picture I had taken, my sister and the lawyer. Proof. The fight raged behind me. Then, suddenly, silence. I turned, trembling. One man stood. The other lay motionless on the deck. But which one? My son? Or the lawyer? The answer hovered in the air, and yet my lungs refused to breathe. Because whichever truth awaited me would destroy everything. The deck lights flickered above me, casting harsh beams over the chaos. My pulse thundered so loud it drowned out the roar of the waves. One man stood, his chest heaving, his face drenched with sweat and fury. The other lay sprawled on the cold steel floor, motionless. For one terrifying heartbeat, I could not tell who had survived. "Mom." It was my son's voice. His trembling hand reached toward me, steady enough to prove he was alive. Relief crashed over me so hard my knees nearly gave way. The lawyer, however, lay crumpled at his feet. Unmoving. Or so I thought. "Stay back," my son warned, eyes locked on the fallen man. Then, slowly, the lawyer stirred. A groan rattled from his throat. Blood slipped his temple where my son's blow had landed, but his lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. "You think this changes anything?" he rasped. "The plan's already in motion. The money, the inheritance, it won't be hers for long." Anger ripped through me, tearing past my fear. "What plan? What are you talking about?" He coughed, spitting red onto the deck. "Ask your sister. She signed the papers. You will see." My heart clenched. My sister. My flesh and blood. Her betrayal hit harder than any fist. The crew locked the lawyer in a guarded storage room. But that wasn't enough. I needed answers, straight from the source. My son and... I stormed down the corridor. My sister's cabin loomed ahead like a waiting shadow. Without knocking, I shut the door open. She sat at the vanity, brushing her hair, calm as moonlight. Her reflection smirked at me through the mirror. "Sister," I hissed, "tell me it is not true." Her hand froze mid-stroke. "What is not true?" "You. The lawyer. The inheritance. The lies." She finally turned, her eyes glittering like shards of glass. "Ah, so you heard." She rose slowly, gracefully, as if she had rehearsed this moment. "Do you know how exhausting it's been?" She sneered. "Watching you adored while I was always the shadow. Do you even know what that feels like?" "You had everything," I stammered. "We shared everything, no." Her voice cracked like a whip. "You had everything. The family. The love. Him. And when he died, he left behind $28 million. All for you, the saintly widow." Her venom sliced deep. I had never imagined jealousy could poison her so fully. "You think you deserve it more?" I whispered. She smiled coldly. "Not think. No. And thanks to him," she nodded toward the lawyer's prison, "the papers are signed. Transfer's already begun. By the time you dock, ITLL all be gone." My chest is hollowed. Could it be true? Where are the papers?" my son demanded, her head tilted. "Safe. Safer than you will ever be." I lunged at her desk, tearing open drawers, scattering letters, jewels, scraps of memory. My hand shook as I rifled, desperate for proof. And then I found it. A slim folder. Inside, legal documents bearing forged signatures. My name. My husband's. The empire of his legacy shifted into her hands. Planned. Perfected. Months, maybe years. But just as I clutched the papers, the lights died. The cabin plunged into blackness. My breath caught. From the hallway came screams. Alarms wailed. And then the smell. Smoke. Fire. Someone cried. Flames devoured the corridor, fed by fuel I could not name. The smoke clawed my throat, burning me inside out. Behind us, my sister's laughter rose. Jagged and manic. "You will never make it out alive." We fought through the smoke, climbing stairwells, coughing, choking. My son dragged me forward, his grip the only tether. At last, we broke onto the top deck. Open air. Stars above. But fire raged below. And my sister, she was already waiting. She stood by the rail, clutching the folder tight. Flames lit her face in a hellish glow. "Give it back." I screamed. "Why should I?" Her voice cracked with triumph. "You don't deserve it." And with one swift movement, she flung the folder high. Pages spiraled through the air, scattering like dead leaves, drifting toward the sea. My proof, gone. Or so she believed. Because in my hand, glowing faintly, was my phone. On it, the photo I had taken on the storage deck. Her. The lawyer. Together. Her crime captured forever. I raised the screen. It's over. I had everything I need. Her triumph shattered. Fury replaced it. She lunged. But my son stepped between us. Enough. The ship groaned beneath us. An explosion rocked the deck. My sister's eyes widened as the floor tilted. Her hands clawed the railing, then slipped. For a fraction of a second, her gaze locked with mine. And then she was gone, swallowed by the black water below. The flames were contained. Passengers evacuated. The lawyer delivered to the authorities when we docked, his schemes exposed. But my sister, she never resurfaced. Some whispered she drowned. Others murmured she escaped, lurking somewhere, waiting to strike again. I had proof. I had victory. But it didn't feel like triumph. Because what good is winning when the cost is blood? Standing on the pier, I held my son's hand. For the first time in years, I truly saw him, not as the boy I doubted, nor the man I feared had betrayed me, but as my protector. My anchor. "Mom," he whispered, "we will be okay." Tears stung. I nodded. Yes, we will. But in the quiet corners of my mind, one question lingered. Had my sister truly drowned that night? Or was she still out there, hiding in shadows, waiting for her chance to finish what she started? The sea keeps secrets. And so do families.